Hey, it's Jeremy with Strength in Numbers. Budgets. Ugh. It's a nasty word, right? Have maybe you've tried budgets before, it just doesn't seem to work? Well, today I'm going to show you how to break that cycle. Here's the truth. A budget is not a bad thing. It's like the word diet. Diet just means what you eat and drink. But we have put this negative connotation on the word diet because it feels like we're restricted and it's a lack. But it's really just about getting yourself healthy, right? And trying to lose weight and be healthier because you need to lose weight, right? Well, the same thing is true of budgeting. And many people identify budgeting with spend less, oh, hurt, I'm killed. No, like it's not just about that. I truly believe that a budget is like a sound ship that will get you to your goals. If you can't live within your means now, by the way, how will you do so in retirement when you don't have any other choice and you're on a fixed income? Even if that's a great big fixed income, either way, you need to know how to live within your means. So I'm going to walk through 5 tips today as to how you can do exactly that. First, have some goals. Define your goals. Now, I talk about this a little bit more in my previous video about why you're not getting traction in your finances, but I truly believe that if you're going to get traction in your finances and you're going to get this budget thing working, you need to have goals. Otherwise, you're going to continue to live paycheck to paycheck, and maybe you'll get good at paying bills, which is what I did when I first started budgeting, but you're never going to get traction on your goals, which I didn't for 5 years after that. So we can become good at budgeting and paying our bills on time, but ultimately what that often sets us up for is just becoming a slave to making payments. And we're not really getting any traction towards our future. And then we look down the road years later and go, why am I in the same position that I'm in? So the first thing is define your goals. And then we're going to take those goals and we're going to identify how you get there with your dollars and dedicate those dollars first in your budget after any giving that you normally do. Before you say, I'm going to have fun over here, fun over there, that's great. We can have fun too, but we want to make sure that we're not just living for today, we're living for tomorrow as well. So define your goals. I truly believe that frugality is just a means to an end. What's the point? So you can live in a cave and come out on triple coupon Thursdays as a hermit? Like, what's the point of the frugality? Just because I need to spend less, but why do you need to spend less? Because you feel like there's not enough. Why do you feel there's not enough, right? And we keep peeling back these questions. I think frugality is a means to an end, and there's no point in being frugal if you don't know where you're headed. If it gets you closer to your goal, awesome. Then frugality for this season, or frugality for your life if it gets you closer to your goal. But frugality for frugality's sake is an empty proposition. Number 2 is think long term. This is the number one thing I see people making mistakes with budgeting is they're thinking about this month and maybe a couple of things about next month they need to watch out for, and they're not thinking long term about those yearly costs and those semi-annual costs and those quarterly costs, and then, oh crap, I'm not ready, and man, this budgeting thing just doesn't work. It's because you're not doing it efficiently. So we need to think long term. Make sure you think about these things that do cost annually and so on and break them down. Here in my state, we have wonderful vehicle property tax. So if it's $600 a year or something, break it down. $50 every month, set it aside consistently, and you'll have $600 in a year. So think long term when you're doing a budget. Don't just think about the present short-term expenses. Third is let it roll and let it keep on rolling. See, when you're thinking long term, there's going to be 2 different kinds of budget categories in your budget. There's going to be spend categories such as groceries, where you're spending them every month. And there's not really a month where you don't have money that you're spending on groceries. And there's going to be 2 build categories, which are things like that car tax example I gave earlier, or the annual premiums, where you're not spending it every month, you're putting it aside and building it until you need it when it's due. And there are a couple that are hybrids like clothing, where you're not going to necessarily spend it every month, but you need to put money in there because eventually you will have a big purchase of clothing. But you're going to have the ability and the need to roll things forward. So make sure that you're letting it roll. So when you let it roll, that comes into play 2 different ways. One, you're letting that money roll forward into the future for that future expense, but also if you have more grocery money left over at the end of the month, which is an awesome feeling, right? You get that grocery budget built and you spend the groceries and you still got money left over, let that extra money roll over to the next month, and then give it some time to get better at budgeting before you reevaluate your budget. You're not going to learn how to budget after 1 month. So let the excess roll until you get more experience with it. Number 4 is use a system. Use a system to know where you're at any given time. I believe that system stands for save yourself time, energy, and money. Systems are your friend. Yes, I know it's a nerd talking, but it's true no matter who you are. Look around our whole world right now. There's systems everywhere. Systems are your friend. Systems are good for you. So have a system. If you set a goal at the beginning of the month and say, I'm going to spend $400 on groceries, and then halfway through the month you have no clue how much money you've spent of that $400, how are you going to know if you did it? How are you going to know if you're on track? How are you going to get to the end of the month and not run out of money before then? You need to have a system in place to let those other things roll, but also so you know where you're at during the month so you can stay on track. Because here's the thing about budgeting. Every dollar you overspend in some area because you weren't paying attention or you were misbehaving with money is another dollar that can't go to your goals. So it all comes back to your goal. You've got to know what your goal is and protect those dollars. And that's how you do that, is by having a system to dedicate those dollars to those goals, but also to know where you're at with all your other spending so you don't accidentally spend your goal dollars and any other things that you need. And number 5 is stick with it. Listen, no budget comes down from heaven. Oh, budget me. No perfect budget comes down from heaven and says, here's the budget month, it's done. Nope, doesn't happen. And listen, even if it did, gas prices were going to change next month. You've got to be prepared to change. This budgeting thing is an evolution. It's an amoeba. It's a living organism. It's always redividing and multiplying and all these other things. You've got to be on top of it. You don't have to put a ton of work into it. It's going to take more work up front, but you will get to a point to where, for me, for example, I didn't have to change my car gas budget for 4 years. And then I finally had to change it. But I was paying attention to it and looking at it and doing reports and stuff to see, am I really continuing to stay in this area? I've got enough money. So you will get better at it to where you don't need to be on top of it making changes so often, but you need to be on top of it reviewing it. But you can't get that at place if you don't stick with it and do it long term. It takes time. Now here's a key phrase I want you to remember and take away. If you take nothing else away from this video, take this away. Always seek to be proactive, not perfect. If you figure out how to be perfect with budgeting, please come give me a call because you can take my job. There is no such thing as a perfect budget. There is a zero-based budget, there's a healthy budget, there's a proactive budget, but you're never going to get the budget to the point to where it will be completely right and done and you never have to touch it again. Ever. Because even if you did that, then you'll get married and now you have somebody else. Or you'll have kids and then they totally change your life. You've got to be able to change your budget as life changes, and change your budget as your goals change. So stick with it long term. Be proactive, not perfect. I hope this has been helpful information for you. This is what I talk about all the time, as you can see. I would love to talk with you some more. Why don't you come in and join my free Facebook community, the Strong Together Money community. Let's talk about this some more together, as well as in the community. And grab my free ebook, The Money Finder, which goes over 6 areas you can get traction in right now, reduce costs right then, which will help your budget, and it'll help make your wallet heavy and your heart light.